Admiral Catherine Steel Rain Collins stood at the reinforced windows of her Cheyenne Mountain Command Center, watching holographic fireworks paint the night sky in celebration of humanity's first lunar settlement. 30 years of secret preparation had led to this moment, though not for the reasons the civilians celebrating below could imagine. The festivities weren't just marking human achievement. They were providing cover for the largest military mobilization in Earth's history. Admiral. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice cut through her reflection. Hegemony transmission incoming. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Collins turned from the window, her weathered face illuminated by the command center's blue emergency lighting. She'd been expecting this. The Hegemony's scout ships had been probing Earth's defenses for months, testing their responses, measuring their capabilities. Or so they thought. Put them through, main screen, she ordered, straightening her midnight blue uniform. The massive display flickered to life, revealing the alien delegation. The Hegemony's supreme commander, a towering crystalline being called Anxeth, dominated the center of the frame. Flanking him were representatives of their other major species, the Serpentine Sith and the amorphous Vex. People of Earth, Anxeth's translated voice boomed through the chamber. Your recent advancement into space has brought you to the attention of the Galactic Hegemony. We have observed your kind and found you. A pause, designed to be condescending, lacking in the refinements of true civilization. Collins caught her XO, Commander Jackson, rolling his eyes. They'd seen this pattern before in Earth's own history. Technologically advanced civilizations mistaking their gadgets for superiority. Therefore, the alien continued, we offer you a choice. Submit to Hegemony guidance and protection, surrendering your military capabilities and accepting our governance, or face immediate extinction. You have 24 Earth hours to override their broadcast. Collins cut in. The tech team, ready for this moment, acted instantly. The Admiral's face replaced the alien transmission on every screen across Earth and its colonies. This is Admiral Catherine Collins of the Earth Deep Space Defense Force. Her voice carried the weight of someone who'd spent a lifetime preparing for this exact moment. Let me be clear about humanity's response to your ultimatum. She nodded to her communications officer, who transmitted a specific set of coordinates to the Hegemony fleet. High above Earth, cloaking fields began to drop, revealing hundreds of advanced human warships that had been hiding in plain sight for years. While you've been watching our public space program, you've missed something crucial about humanity. We don't advertise our true capabilities. We don't showcase our military strength. We prepare. We adapt. We survive. In the Kuiper Belt, massive hangars built inside asteroids began opening, releasing swarms of fighters and destroyers. Near Mars, orbital platforms that appeared to be mining operations transformed into defense stations, their weapons already locked onto Hegemony positions. You see, the Hegemony isn't the first powerful force to mistake humanity's peaceful overtures for weakness. We've spent our entire history dealing with empires that thought their technological advantage guaranteed victory. None of them exist anymore. Collins allowed herself a small smile as reports flooded in. Earth's hidden fleets were in position, their crews ready, their weapons primed. Each ship carried centuries of human military innovation, from ancient battle strategies to modern tactical doctrines. So here's our counteroffer. Withdraw your forces immediately, or discover why humanity never needed to broadcast its military might to the galaxy. You called for war. Now you'll face the experts. The command center erupted in controlled activity as the transmission ended. Collins turned to her staff, her voice carrying the determination that had earned her the call sign Steel Rain. Battle stations. Everyone. Let's show the Hegemony why you should never mistake humanity's patience for weakness. As alert klaxons sounded throughout Earth's hidden military installations, Collins knew that decades of preparation were about to pay off. The Hegemony was about to learn what every would-be conqueror in human history had discovered the hard way. Technology alone doesn't win wars. Experience does. Major Marcus Rivera pressed his back against the cold metal hull of the hegemony supply ship, his magnetized boots the only thing keeping him from drifting into the void of space. The stolen schematics had shown a maintenance hatch here, but intel from alien vessels was never perfect. He glanced at his team, 6 of Earth's finest special operations soldiers, each chosen for their expertise in primitive skills the hegemony had long abandoned. Ghost lead to control, he whispered into his comm, the sound conducting through his helmet's bone induction system. We're at Point Alpha, beginning mechanical bypass. Technical Sergeant Sarah Wong pulled out what would have looked like an antique lockpicking set to most modern military forces. The hegemony's security systems were designed to prevent cyber attacks and energy-based breaching, but they'd never considered someone might use simple mechanical tools. Like breaking into a bank vault with a stethoscope, Wong muttered, her fingers working the ancient craft that no eye could replicate. The lock clicked. We're in, Major. Rivera signaled, and his team slipped inside one by one. The ship's artificial gravity engaged, and they magnetized their boots to move silently across the ceiling, another primitive technique that the hegemony's internal sensors weren't designed to detect. Modern problems required ancient solutions. Movement ahead. Lieutenant Cooper's voice whispered through the comm. 2 Sith guards, standard patrol pattern. Rivera watched through his visor as the serpentine aliens slithered past below. Their infrared signatures burned bright against the cool ship interior, making them easy to track. The team waited, counting the seconds between patrols just as their ancestors had done in countless operations throughout human history. Ghost lead to all points, Rivera transmitted. Execute Phase 2. The team split into 3 pairs, each heading to different sections of the ship. Rivera and Wong made their way toward the bridge, using maintenance shafts that the hegemony's larger species rarely bothered with. Their size, once considered a disadvantage by the aliens, was now their greatest asset. Control, this is Ghost 3, Cooper's voice crackled. Package 1 planted. Beginning thermal masking. Similar confirmations came from Ghost 2. The charges they were placing weren't explosives. They were sophisticated data taps designed to infiltrate the hegemony's command and control networks. But the real genius was in their disguise. They're looking for high-tech intrusion, Wong commented as she placed their final device. These will register as simple temperature fluctuations from the hull's exposure to solar radiation. Rivera allowed himself a grim smile. The hegemony was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their experience in using every possible advantage, no matter how primitive it might seem. The mission was proceeding perfectly until a new heat signature appeared on their tactical display. A massive Enxith officer was approaching their position, its crystalline form reflecting thermal readings that nearly blinded their sensors. Hold position, Rivera ordered, pressing himself into a maintenance alcove. Wong followed suit, both of them barely breathing as the officer passed inches away. But the Enxith stopped, its crystalline head turning slightly. It had sensed something, not through technology, but through some primitive instinct its own species had nearly forgotten. Rivera made a split-second decision. He activated his suit's chameleon coating, not the advanced stealth tech the hegemony would expect, but a simple thermochromic material inspired by Earth's octopi. As the officer turned to investigate, Rivera appeared to be nothing more than a shadow cast by the ship's internal lighting. The Enxith moved on, and Rivera released his breath. Ghost lead to control. Primary objective achieved. Beginning Phase 3. Back in Cheyenne Mountain, Admiral Collins received the transmission with satisfaction. The Ghost Wolves had just proved her theory correct. The hegemony's greatest weakness was their absolute faith in advanced technology. They'd forgotten that sometimes the oldest solutions were the best ones. Understood, Ghost Lead, she responded. All teams, initiate data extraction. Let's show the hegemony what happens when they underestimate human ingenuity. As Rivera's team began their exfiltration, The first streams of hegemony tactical data were already being analyzed by Earth's war planners. The aliens were about to learn another painful lesson about humanity. Sometimes the deadliest knife is the one you never see coming. Firefly Squadrons, this is Admiral Collins. Operation is go. Show them what Earth's pilots can do. Lieutenant Commander Maya Quicksilver Rodriguez watched the hegemony dreadnoughts emerge from hyperspace, their massive forms blotting out the stars. Each alien vessel was the size of a small city, bristling with weapon systems that could vaporize a conventional fleet. But today, they weren't facing a conventional fleet. Quicksilver to all Firefly units, she broadcast to her squadron. Remember your training. We're not here to match their power. We're here to make them choke on it. 5,000 microships dropped their quantum camouflage, appearing like a swarm of angry hornets against the backdrop of space. Each vessel was barely larger than a fighter jet, crewed by a single pilot chosen for their exceptional spatial awareness and unorthodox thinking. The hegemony fleet's response was predictable, exactly as Earth's war simulations had anticipated. Their massive ships began charging their primary weapons, expecting to obliterate any opposition with overwhelming force. Execute pattern storm dance, Rodriguez ordered, her hands dancing across her neural interface controls. Her squadron split apart, each ship moving in seemingly random patterns that actually followed complex mathematical models based on weather systems and insect swarm behaviors. The first hegemony blast passed harmlessly through empty space, where her squadron had been a millisecond before. The alien gunners, used to targeting capital ships, couldn't adjust to opponents that moved like desert wind. Echo Wing, begin your run, she commanded. Remember Crazy Horse. A group of microships dove toward the nearest dreadnought, mimicking the circular riding patterns of Native American horse warriors. They spiraled around the massive vessel's weapon ports, their small size and incredible speed making them nearly impossible to target. Precision strikes disabled gun after gun, like arrows finding weak points in armor. The hegemony commander's frustrated voice boomed across all frequencies. Stand and fight, you cowards. Rodriguez smiled as she led her own attack run. Control, this is Quicksilver. They're still trying to force us into their kind of battle. Understood, Quicksilver, Collins replied. Show them ours. Rodriguez's squadron executed a maneuver that would have been suicide for larger ships. They dove straight into the dreadnought's defense screen. Their microships' smart metal hulls vibrated at precisely the right frequency to pass through the energy barrier, a trick learned from studying hummingbird wing movements. All units, initiate Firefly Protocol, Rodriguez ordered as they emerged inside the dreadnought's defensive perimeter. Thousands of microships swarmed around the massive vessel like angry insects, each one targeting specific vulnerabilities identified by Ghost Wolf intelligence. The hegemony crew's panic was evident in their deteriorating formation. Their ships began firing wildly, their sophisticated targeting systems overwhelmed by the sheer number of small, fast-moving targets. Several shots hit their own vessels. They're breaking formation, Rodriguez reported, rolling her ship through a gap in the dreadnought's armor plating that would have been too small for any conventional vessel. Just like Moscow, sir. Admiral Collins's voice carried a note of satisfaction. Indeed, they never studied Napoleon's retreat. When you can't match their strength, make them defeat themselves, Rodriguez finished, watching as another dreadnought's desperate evasive maneuver caused it to collide with its companion ship. The battle continued for 3 hours, but its outcome was decided in the first 15 minutes. The hegemony fleet, for all its power, couldn't adapt to an enemy that refused to fight according to their rules. Their mighty dreadnoughts were reduced to lumbering targets as Earth's microships danced through their formation, striking with surgical precision before vanishing like ghosts. Quicksilver to control. Primary targets neutralized. Enemy fleet is in full retreat. In her command center, Admiral Collins watched the hegemony ships limp away, their once proud formation now a scattered mess of damaged vessels. Well done, Firefly Squadrons. Return to base for rearm and refit. Something tells me they'll be back. And next time, they'll be angry. Rodriguez took a moment to watch the retreat before leading her squadron home. The hegemony had just learned what so many others had discovered throughout history. Sometimes the smallest opponent could be the deadliest, especially when they refuse to fight on your terms. Dr. James History Hunter Martinez stood before a holographic display showing thousands of years of human warfare. His team of military historians and combat veterans crowded around the circular projection table. The room, deep within Cheyenne Mountain's classified sections, hummed with energy as they analyzed their latest data from the front. "Play it again," he ordered, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. "Focus on the Sith formation during their counterattack." The hologram shifted, showing serpentine alien warships attempting to break through Earth's defensive line near Mars. Their movements were fluid, coordinated, and tellingly familiar. There, Colonel Sarah Harper pointed, her cybernetic arm highlighting specific movement patterns. "They're using a modified phalanx, just like ancient Greece, but in 3 dimensions." Martinez nodded, his expression lighting up with the thrill of discovery. Exactly. Their evolutionary history as pack hunters made them naturally adopt tight, defensive formations. They're literally unable to conceive of warfare any other way. The room buzzed with activity as analysts cross-referenced historical battles with alien combat footage. On one screen, Alexander the Great's tactics at Gaugamela played alongside a hegemony assault. On another, Mongol horse archer formations were compared to Anksith crystal ship attacks. "Sir," Lieutenant Wei called out, "you need to see this correlation. The Anksith battle patterns, they're almost identical to medieval heavy cavalry charges." Martinez moved to Wei's station, studying the overlay patterns. "Of course," he whispered. "Their crystalline structure requires them to maintain momentum. They can't stop or turn quickly without risking structural damage. They're prisoners of their own biology." The breakthrough was interrupted by a priority transmission. Admiral Collins's hologram appeared at the center of the room. "Doctor, please tell me you have something. The hegemony is massing for another push, and this time they're bringing their elite units." Martinez straightened, his eyes gleaming with the confidence of someone who had just solved a crucial puzzle. "Admiral, we've cracked their combat doctrine. Every species in the hegemony fights according to their evolutionary history. They can't help it. It's literally hardwired into their neural architecture." He gestured, and the holographic display filled with battle analyses. "The Sith always fight in phalanx formations because they evolved as pack hunters. The Anksith charge like heavy cavalry because their crystalline bodies require constant forward momentum. Even their supposedly elite units are bound by these limitations." "And the Vex?" Collins asked, referring to the amorphous third species. Colonel Harper stepped forward. "Like ancient skirmishers, Admiral. They probe for weaknesses but can't hold territory. Their fluid nature makes them excellent scouts, but terrible occupation forces." Martinez took control of the briefing. "The hegemony's greatest weakness is their inability to adapt. They've never faced a species that could recognize and exploit their patterns. But humanity." He paused, allowing himself a small smile. "We've spent our entire history studying and countering exactly these kinds of tactics." "Give me something concrete, Doctor," Collins demanded. "How do we use this?" "We bait the Sith with apparent weaknesses in our lines. They'll instinctively try to exploit them with their phalanx formations. Then we collapse the pocket, just like Hannibal at Cannae. For the Anksith, we use the same techniques the English longbowmen used against French knights. Let them charge, but not where they want to go." The Admiral's hologram nodded slowly. "And the Vex? We don't bother. They're scouts, not warriors. Remove their heavy support, and they'll retreat to preserve themselves. It's built into their species' survival instincts." Collins studied the analysis for a long moment. "How confident are you in these assessments, Doctor?" Martinez met her gaze steadily. "Admiral, every soldier in this room has studied warfare their entire career. We're not just looking at alien tactics, we're seeing the same patterns humanity mastered thousands of years ago. The hegemony thinks they're an advanced civilization teaching primitives a lesson. In reality, they're about to face every military innovation in human history. Collins finished. Well done, Doctor. Send me your complete analysis. It's time to show the hegemony why humans write the books on warfare. As the Admiral's hologram faded, Martinez turned back to his team. Update the combat simulations. I want counter-tactics for every known hegemony formation ready within 6 hours. It's time to teach some old dogs our ancient tricks. Admiral Collins stood at her command station, watching the holographic battle map as thousands of ships maneuvered through the void between Mars and Jupiter. The hegemony had committed their full remaining force, over 300 capital ships and countless support vessels. They expected this overwhelming display of force to finally break humanity's resistance. Status report, she commanded, her voice carrying across the hushed command center. Hegemony fleet approaching in standard formation, Captain Reynolds reported. Sith warships in phalanx configuration. Sith battle groups preparing for their crystal charge maneuver. Vex scouts probing our flanks. Collins allowed herself a thin smile. Exactly as Dr. Martinez predicted. Deploy according to Operation Thunderbolt. Let's show them what happens when you study your history. Earth's fleet began moving in precise formations that would have been familiar to any ancient general. The center of their line appeared to weaken, a deliberate echo of Alexander's tactics at Gaugamela. The hegemony's Sith commanders, unable to resist their ingrained instincts, began redirecting their forces toward the apparent vulnerability. Ma'am, Lieutenant Gordon called out, Sith forces taking the bait. Their phalanx is extending, just like a Kene. Proceed with Phase 2, Collins ordered. Authorize Captain Rodriguez to begin her attack run. The Firefly squadron struck first, their microships swarming through the hegemony formation like Mongol horse archers, disrupting their carefully maintained order. The Sith commanders, bound by their rigid tactical doctrine, couldn't adapt to the chaos being sown throughout their ranks. Sith battle group breaking formation, Reynolds reported. They're charging our lines. Collins nodded. Just like the French knights at Agincourt. Spring the trap. Hidden throughout the asteroid field, Earth's missile platforms revealed themselves. They didn't target the charging Sith ships directly. Instead, they filled their path with specialized gravitational mines. The crystalline vessels, unable to alter their momentum without shattering, plowed straight into the field. Axis casualties at 60%, Gordon announced. Their formation is breaking up. Now the Sith, Collins commanded. Execute Operation Python's Coil. Earth's heavy cruisers, which had been gradually retreating from the Sith phalanx, suddenly reversed course. They split into two groups, sweeping around the extended alien formation like the horns of a buffalo herd. The Sith, their tactical doctrine demanding they maintain their tight formation, couldn't respond quickly enough to the double envelopment. The Vex are attempting to coordinate a response, Reynolds reported. Collins watched as the amorphous aliens tried to rally their allies. They'd realized their mistake, but too late. Launch our EMP strike. Specialized drones, designed based on Dr. Martinez's analysis of Vex biology, detonated throughout the battlefield. The electromagnetic pulses weren't meant to damage ships. They were calibrated to disrupt the Vex's unique neural networks. The alien coordinators, their consciousness scattered by the pulses, began retreating in confusion. Hegemony fleet is in disarray, Gordon reported, barely containing his excitement. Their command and control structure is collapsing. Collins keyed her comm to broadcast on all frequencies. This is Admiral Collins to all Earth forces. Execute final phase. Show them why humanity remembers its history. Earth's fleet moved as one, demonstrating centuries of combined military doctrine. Firefly squadrons struck like Roman cavalry. Microships darkened space like Persian arrows, and heavy cruisers maneuvered with the precision of Prussian infantry. Each tactic was centuries or millennia old, yet the hegemony had no defense against them. Enemy fleet is retreating, Reynolds announced. Multiple hegemony capital ships have surrendered. The command center erupted in cheers, but Collins raised her hand for silence. Get me Dr. Martinez. The historian's hologram appeared, grinning broadly. I take it our analysis proved correct, Admiral. More than correct, Doctor. Your team's work just won us this battle. She turned to face the tactical display. The hegemony thought technology would make them invincible. They never understood that warfare isn't about having the biggest guns. It's about knowing how to use whatever weapons you have. As the hegemony fleet retreated in disorder, Collins allowed herself a moment of reflection. Humanity had just demonstrated why they were the masters of warfare, not because they were the strongest or most advanced, but because they remembered every lesson their bloody history had taught them. In the crystalline halls of the hegemony's Strategic Analysis Center, First Analyst Anx Krull stared at the holographic display with growing horror. The battle footage playing before the assembled council wasn't just a military defeat. It was a comprehensive dismantling of everything the hegemony thought they knew about warfare. Impossible, Supreme Commander Anxith Vin whispered, his crystalline form vibrating with distress. Our technological advantage alone should have. Technology means nothing, Anxith Krull interrupted, breaking centuries of protocol. Look at this. The hologram shifted, showing side-by-side comparisons of Earth's military history alongside their recent tactics. Ancient armies clashed on dusty plains next to void battles. Roman legions advanced beside spacecraft formations. Medieval cavalry charges paralleled microship attacks. While we spent millennia in enforced peace, Anxith Krull continued, they spent their history doing this. Looking at these records, I estimate humans have fought more wars in their brief civilization than the entire hegemony has in its existence. The Sith war leader, Ciceron, slithered forward, his scales reflecting the holographic light. You mean to say they've been practicing, innovating, adapting. Anxith Krull manipulated the display, showing footage from Earth's world wars. Look here. In just 6 years of what they called World War II, they advanced from primitive propeller aircraft to jet engines. Their entire species transforms itself through conflict. The council chamber erupted in hissing and crystalline chiming as the implications became clear. The Vex representative, a swirling mass of intelligent plasma, formed itself into a question mark. That's not even the worst part, Anxith Krull continued. We thought their scattered, diverse military traditions were a weakness. Instead, they've preserved every fighting style, every strategy, every lesson learned in blood. They can draw upon thousands of years of combat evolution at will. New footage played. Ghost Wolf teams infiltrating hegemony ships using techniques perfected by ancient assassins. Firefly squadrons employing aerial tactics developed by countless air forces. Ground forces adapting strategies from every corner of their world. Their Admiral Collins didn't just defeat us, Anxith Krull concluded. She used our own prejudices against us. We expected primitives with advanced toys. Instead, we faced military experts who'd spent generations preparing for exactly this kind of fight. Supreme Commander Anxith Vin's crystalline form darkened with concern. Surely they're AI combat systems. They don't use AI for strategic decisions, Anxith Krull cut in. Every major command choice is made by human officers drawing on their species' collective combat experience. Their machines support their intuition rather than replacing it. The chamber fell silent as a final piece of footage played. A recovered transmission from an Earth classroom. Young human cadets studied historical battles, debating strategies and proposing modifications for space warfare. They weren't just preserving their military history. They were actively evolving it. We face a species, Anxith Krull said quietly, that has turned warfare into an art form. Every conflict in their history is a lesson they've absorbed. Every battle is an experiment in tactics. Every defeat is data for future victories. The Vex representative swirled anxiously. Can we adapt? Learn their methods? That's what you still don't understand, HFY replied. We can't simply copy their techniques. Their strength isn't in any single tactic or technology. It's their ability to synthesize thousands of years of combat experience and apply it in new ways. We'd need to completely restructure our society to match that capability. Supreme Commander HFY rose, his crystalline form casting fractured light across the chamber. Then we have only one logical choice. Yes, HFY agreed. We must sue for peace, not because we can't continue fighting, but because every engagement teaches them more about us while revealing how little we understand them. The longer this war continues, the wider that gap becomes. As the Council began drafting their peace proposal, HFY returned to studying the battle footage. The humans had taught the hegemony a lesson that would reshape their civilization. True military power didn't come from superior technology or overwhelming force. It came from the wisdom earned through centuries of conflict, and the determination to learn from every battle, won or lost. Major Marcus Rivera stood in the drop pod, checking his team's gear one final time. The Ghost Wolves weren't wearing their usual stealth suits. Instead, they were equipped with ceremonial combat armor, polished to a mirror shine, but fully functional. This mission required both show and substance. Ghost lead to control, he transmitted. Ready for final approach. Admiral Collins's voice came through clear and strong. Proceed, Major. Remember, this is probably the most important infiltration in human history. Make it count. The pod's exterior heated to cherry red as they entered the atmosphere of the hegemony's capital world. They weren't sneaking in this time. Their descent was deliberately visible, a calculated show of both capability and respect. 30 seconds, Lieutenant Cooper announced. They're tracking us, but not engaging. Rivera nodded. Just like the samurai delegations of old Japan. Show strength to negotiate peace. The pod landed precisely in the designated zone, its doors opening to reveal the Ghost Wolves in perfect formation. Before them stood the crystalline spires of the hegemony's central command, and a delegation of all three alien species waited at the entrance. Forward, Rivera ordered, and his team moved with practiced precision. Each step was measured, their formation a perfect demonstration of human military discipline. The aliens watched, their body language showing a mix of fear and fascination. Supreme Commander HFY stepped forward, his crystalline form catching the light of twin suns. You come armed into our command center. We come as warriors seeking peace, Rivera replied, using the ceremonial phrases Dr. Martinez had prepared. Our weapons are sheathed but present, a sign of respect in human tradition. We acknowledge each other's strength rather than pretending it doesn't exist. The Sith representatives hissed in approval. They, at least, understood the concept of warrior's honor. The Vex delegates swirled in patterns that their analysts identified as thoughtful consideration. Inside the command center, Rivera's team maintained their formation as they were led to the High Council chamber. The room was filled with representatives from across the hegemony, all watching the humans with new understanding. You could have attempted assassination, HFY observed. Our analyses show you had a 68% chance of success. Rivera smiled. The harder path is often the right one. We're not here to destroy the hegemony. We're here to help it grow. He gestured, and Technical Sergeant Wong activated a holographic display. It showed scenes from Earth's history, not just wars, but their aftermaths. Former enemies becoming allies, bitter rivals learning to cooperate, warriors choosing to become peacekeepers. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to wage war, Rivera continued, his voice carrying through the chamber. It's our ability to learn from it. Every conflict teaches us not just how to fight better, but why we should strive to avoid fighting at all. The display shifted to show the recent battles, but from a new perspective. It highlighted moments where Earth forces had chosen precision over destruction, disabling rather than destroying, offering surrender instead of annihilation. Your analysis was correct. We are experts in warfare, Rivera acknowledged. But that expertise has taught us that the greatest victory isn't destroying your enemy. It's turning them into an ally. Anxithvin's crystalline form shifted, displaying colors that indicated deep thought. You offer peace from a position of strength. Why? Because that's when peace means something, Rivero replied. We could continue this war. We could probably win it, but every soldier in this room knows the cost of victory. We're offering a chance to learn from each other instead. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The hegemony had expected either brutal conquest or desperate pleading. Instead, they faced warriors who understood both the art of war and the greater victory of choosing peace. Your terms, Anxithvin asked finally. Rivera nodded to Wong, who presented a data crystal. Equal partnership in the hegemony, exchange of knowledge, cultural, scientific, and yes, military. A chance to combine our strengths rather than test them against each other. As the aliens reviewed the terms, Rivera stood at parade rest, his team maintaining their perfect formation. They were living proof of humanity's message. True strength wasn't just about the ability to wage war, but the wisdom to know when to wage peace instead. The U.S. Enterprise space carrier hung in high orbit above Earth, its massive form dwarfing both the human and hegemony diplomatic vessels surrounding it. Admiral Catherine Collins stood on the observation deck, watching the combined fleet glinting in the sunlight. The sight would have been unimaginable just months ago. Sith cruisers flying in formation with human battleships. Anxith crystal ships refracting sunlight alongside Firefly squadrons. Quite a view, isn't it? Dr. Martinez joined her at the window, his historian's eye taking in the historic scene. The largest combined fleet in known space. And the first time the hegemony has accepted equals rather than subjects, Collins added, adjusting her dress uniform. The ceremony would begin in minutes, marking humanity's official entry into the galactic community. The observation deck had been transformed into a ceremonial hall, with representatives from both Earth and the hegemony gathering in carefully arranged sections. Major Rivera and his ghost wolves stood at attention along one wall, their presence a reminder of how this peace had been achieved. Supreme Commander Anxithvin entered with his delegation, his crystalline form now decorated with patterns that human xenoanthropologists recognized as symbols of change and growth. The Sith and Vex representatives followed, each displaying their own signs of transformation. For 10,000 years, Anxithvin began, his translated voice carrying across the hushed deck. The hegemony believed that technological superiority was the measure of civilization. Humanity has taught us otherwise. Collins stepped forward, her metals catching the light. We came to the stars carrying the weight of our history, every battle, every war, every hard-learned lesson. Not because we sought conflict, but because we understood its cost. The assembled delegates watched as holographic displays activated, showing scenes from the recent war alongside moments from human history. Warriors becoming peacekeepers, enemies becoming allies. The eternal cycle of conflict and reconciliation that had shaped human civilization. You called for war, Collins continued, and we answered as warriors. But we never forgot the most important lesson our history taught us, that true victory isn't measured in ships destroyed or territories conquered, but in understanding gained and wisdom shared. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez and her Firefly squadron leaders stood with Anxith battle commanders, already discussing joint training exercises. Ghost Wolf operators compared infiltration techniques with Sith special forces. Vex analysts swirled in complex patterns as they exchanged tactical databases with human strategists. The hegemony offers not subjugation, but partnership, Anxithvin announced. Humanity will join us not as subjects, but as equals. Your experience will guide us. Your wisdom will transform us. Together, we will create something greater than either of us could achieve alone. Collins nodded to her aide, who brought forward an ancient artifact, a preserved olive branch, a symbol of peace from humanity's distant past. She presented it to Anxithvin, who accepted it with a crystalline gesture of profound respect. "Let this mark not just the end of war," Collins declared, "but the beginning of understanding. You called us primitives, but found instead a civilization that had mastered not just the art of war, but the greater art of peace." The ceremony continued with the signing of treaties and exchange of honors. But the real work was already happening throughout the ship. Human and alien personnel mingled freely, sharing stories and experiences. Warriors who had faced each other in battle now faced each other as colleagues and potential friends. As the formal proceedings concluded, Collins returned to the observation window. Earth shone below, while the stars above beckoned with new possibility. Dr. Martinez joined her again, clutching a data pad filled with notes for future history books. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "we didn't just teach them about warfare. We taught them about humanity." Collins smiled, watching a group of cadets eagerly discussing tactics with a Sith warrior master. "That's the real victory, isn't it? They came expecting to find savages with stolen technology. Instead, they found equals who could teach them things their 10,000 years of power never could." As the combined fleet began its celebratory maneuvers, Collins delivered the words that would be remembered across the galaxy. "You called for war. Now let us teach you peace."